Okay. And so welcome to SWAN Tech Update September of 2022. We're going to go over all of this stuff and anything you all want to talk about. So we're hoping these can kind of be informal. We'll present some stuff because we find that, when people come into these, they expect some kind of information to be shared. So we're going to share some information, but we really want to get information from all of you and to know what's out in the field, what you're facing, with some of the issues that are cropping up that we need to be aware of. Because the sooner we know about a new technology that's being deployed in libraries and affecting all of you, the better the chance of success when you implement it. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish through these check-ins. All right, I'm not going to go through all that. Yeah. So first off, we just thought it might be helpful for you to see the SWAN organization chart because we have a new box filled in. If you notice on the right, Information Technology and Systems Support Manager is Ian Nosek. So congratulations, Ian. We're happy to have you leading this team. And as you can see, he brings some gravitas to the situation. So Ian has been with SWAN for quite a while. How many years, Ian?
It's been 8 years, almost 9.
Okay, and during that time, Ian's been, his hands has been in a lot of technology, and including Azure Administration Certification, which is our hosting platform for our key Symphony and Aspen properties, and a lot more, but those are our primary mission critical applications that are managed in the Azure environment. So Ian's going to take it from here, but we just wanted to highlight our three main priorities have not shifted. Maybe we'll be describing them differently because we're at different phases in them than when we last had a tech update, but we're continuing with our security review. Our main focus, though, is in hardening our SWAN environment, and the team's going to share a little bit about what that means in projects that we're all involved in. One of the main projects is our single sign-on and account management. And there's a reason why a lot of organizations don't have single sign-on. It's really hard. It's really hard. And if it's not hard, it's really expensive. So kind of finding that, how do we find a solution that isn't going to break the bank, is where we're at. And Rudy's going to give some good updates on that. And then we're also looking at migrating our support site. We're, like all of you, probably looking at migrating from Drupal 7 to Drupal 9, or apparently 10 is about to be dropped. So looking at what that migration means, how we should be hosting that environment, and how we tie it into our ticketing system. So I'm going to go off camera and sit back and enjoy the show and the discussion. So thanks, Ian. I'm throwing it over to you.
Thanks, Dawn. So I just wanted to quickly do a round the table introduction, not only for the SWAN team, but if everybody who's participating wants to do a quick intro as well. Again, I'm Ian Nosek, newly named ITSS manager. Prior to that, I was a systems administrator with David Michael, and I will let Rudy take it from there.
I'm Rudy Host. I'm SWAN systems engineer. I do a lot of the systems planning, server, network, maintenance. I do a little bit of programming, custom development, that sort of thing. And I touch mostly everything in the IT and support systems realm that we have here. Over to Dave.
I'm Dave Payson, one of the systems administrators with SWAN. I handle configuration of staff clients for staff access, such as workflows and Blue Cloud Central, and I also do some custom database update work, such as NCOA. Michael.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Zarmek. I'm one of the system administrators at SWAN. Like Dave, I do a lot of the support work for the ILS, not limited to, but also if you ever send in a request for a report, I'm pretty fluent in Blue Cloud Analytics. I like working that, so you probably have heard from me if you've had a reporting question. And like Dave too, I fit a little bit behind the scenes with API, batch updates, and so on. Vicky.
You're muted, Vicky.
Again, IT, right? I am Vicky Totten. I am the consultant here in IT and system support. And I've been with SWAN for 6 years now. And prior to that, I was at Cicero, and I've always been a huge SWAN cheerleader. I've loved SWAN since Cicero joined it back when I was there. So here at SWAN, I stick my nose into everything. I am the SWAN lurker for a lot of things, and just try to see what I can do to help out everyone at SWAN and our member libraries. And I answer your tickets too. I help out with that.
Thanks, everyone. I see Scott's here. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick too, Scott?
Sure. Hi, I'm Scott Brandwein. I'm the SWAN Bibliographic Services Manager, cataloging acquisitions, metadata, mostly here to just lurk and listen in.
Thanks, Scott. Anybody else want to unmute, introduce yourself to the group? And if that's no, that's fine too. So we will move on then. So I want to do a quick system uptime report. So we actually had pretty minimal outages to the workflows and Symphony server for the past 2 quarters. One of them was a planned rebuild over the Easter weekend, which went smoothly, and that accounts for the vast majority of our downtime in Q2. And Q3, we had a momentary glitch with our SIP services. However, all of their services remained online during that time. And again, with Aspen, we didn't have any unplanned downtime. We had a release update and reindex that was planned in early June. That went well, so we have minimal outage for our OPAC services. And I just want to draw attention to a couple other quick outages. In late May, Cersei Dynix had a problem with their Blue Cloud system. It was down for a couple hours. And then they had that resolved. And then the other issue only affected a handful of libraries, but it was large enough that it's worth noting that ICN had an outage in mid-July, and it knocked quite a few library VPNs off. So we had a huge influx of tickets trying to figure out what's going on, and it happened to be ICN at that time. So for our uptime, I'm proud to report that the workflows server has reached 5 nines of uptime. So 99.999% of the time the Symphony server is available, which is pretty cool. I do want to address some of the recent indexing issues that have come up in the past several weeks. I know we from time to time we'll encounter a report that failed, and we send the email out saying, oh, there were indexing issues. Those are generally pretty rare. However, we have had about a half a dozen in the past couple months, which isn't great. So just to kind of give some quick background, the report that we're referencing is ADU text, and that's the add, delete, and update text report. And basically, as item records are changing throughout the day, those are dumped into essentially a file of keys that need to be processed overnight. So ADU text processes these text and authority keys. That's one of several reports that run through our overnight maintenance window, but it's the only one that has a tendency to cause problems if it encounters a record that it can't process for whatever reason. We will have a load terminated abnormally message within the report. We all have Rudy wrote a script, so if the report fails, it will be part of our morning report digest email that we get, so we know right then. A lot of us have our reports filtering to report folders in our Outlook. However, if any of them finish with abnormally, a lot of us have those going to our inboxes as well. So if I wake up and I see an ADU text in my inbox, I know it might not be a great day. The issue is basically it's a myriad of problems, but Cersei Dynex has to intervene in order to potentially fix the records that are causing these errors. We're fortunate that the last few times this has happened, the impact has been really minimal. Primarily, catalogers have noticed that like records that they were working on the day before, they couldn't search, or there were duplicate records where there shouldn't be, or there were merges that didn't work. So it hasn't really affected circulation, whereas in some of our past ADU text problems, that's caused significant issues in searching, circulation. Anytime they tried to bring up a record that was blocked by the report, you would get errors. Record needs to be indexed, hat wrapper errors, all sorts of errors during the day-to-day operations when we're sort of in that limbo period between a failed ADU text and the mitigation that Cersei Dynex is applying. Fortunately, we didn't really run into that. I think the last time that we had an abnormal ADU text, I don't even think we encountered any records that we were able to provide to Cersei Dynex. So what we've done, since this has kind of keyed up, and it's been more of an irritation than a real problem, since it has been pretty minimal, but the fact that it's happening more regularly is concerning. So what we've done, as we've been working with Cersei Dynex on this issue over the past few weeks, is we will be scheduling 2 additional indexing reports that will run in our early morning Sunday maintenance window. And that should basically check the indexes 2 ways to make sure everything's cool after that ADU text runs. And it should then repair any of those indexes if there was a problem that otherwise would have been encountered by ADU text. This is essentially the, report side version of what Cersei Dynex was doing to repair these files as we had these failed reports. So again, when we see these ADU text failures, that pretty much is an immediate SWANCOM and a known issue. Even before we know what's happening, as soon as we know that there might be an impact to the morning, we want to notify the membership as quickly as we can, and then we'll just use our known issue updates as we get information throughout the day. So with that, I would like to kick it over to Vicky to discuss the Baker and Taylor issue that had been coming up recently. Vicky?
Hello again, everyone. Okay, Baker and Taylor, they've had some growing pains as they've moved out from under their umbrella, and we have felt them. So what we had most recently is that they had a ransomware attack, and that was on August 17th, and that actually really lasted until September 6th or 7th. So it really was quite a big disruption for them. And that ransomware attack brought everything pretty much to a screeching halt to them. And that included their phones and email. So the libraries weren't able to contact Baker and Taylor. We couldn't contact them. Their title source 360, so libraries were unable to order material at all through that. And that includes SWAN libraries who are not acquisitions libraries. We do have libraries that use that service through Baker and Taylor just to order their material. And that it also affected their FTP server that made it just completely unavailable. So that our acquisitions libraries here that use workflows, they were unable to send orders or receive invoices. So that was quite a long time for libraries to not be able to order material from them. And Aspen, so Bywater, they removed Access 360, which is the eReads Illinois e-content. They removed that launch for download from Aspen. So that blocked anything from being downloaded directly from Aspen. Patrons were still able to access their app, but just in order to make sure that we weren't bringing in something from Baker and Taylor, we made sure that everything was locked down for that. So,
and just an update on that, Vicki,
Mhm.
Bywater has been communicating with Baker and Taylor to try and get new credentials for verification, because they did reset our web services keys.
Oh, great.
So that is in the works, but I'm sure Baker and Taylor has had lots of customers to coordinate with. So
I'm sure they have. These are the steps that we took in order to protect SWAN. So we blocked the Baker and Taylor vendor records for libraries that use acquisitions here with workflows. We blocked their vendor records from the EDI send and retrieval reports that are used in acquisitions. And that makes sure that we weren't sending files to the FTP server if it did come up before we had a chance to really look at things. So that EDI retrieval report, when that runs, that's going out to the Baker and Taylor FTP sites, and it just copies in every single file that's there for that library. So anything that Baker and Taylor has put in that folder for the library goes out there, it copies all of those files to our Symphony server, and then it removes them from the server. So it's a great way to get those electronic invoices in, but we also realized, okay, this would be, this could have some potential issues for our SWAN server. So we made sure that that was locked down. And then when Baker and Taylor did say that they were up and running normally now, and that everything had been inspected and everything was going well, we did work with some libraries, and we had them bring in those files with the EDI retrieval reports, and then we were checking those files before we did anything else that would bring them in. So we were making sure that they didn't have any incorrect file types or file contents. We didn't want any executables being brought into our SWAN server. And then I should say we also did the same thing for files that were sitting on the server before Baker and Taylor came down on that weekend. And we would like to, at this point, say that this is a really great reminder for all libraries, well, for everyone really, to be really careful and working with trying to identify malware, and really doing some training perhaps with staff, even just to help them identify something that would be malicious out there just coming in through your email. So it really is huge. I know that we've had some libraries that were victims of ransomware, and it's just a good reminder for everyone to make sure that everyone's aware of just how disruptive this can be. And with that, I will pass it on to Dave, who's got some exciting stuff for you.
Well, I don't know how exciting it is, but it might be
It's
at least a
all
little bit interesting.
exciting.
Yeah. I'm going to be talking about pseudo libraries, which is kind of a confusing term. If you haven't heard it, you may not even know what it is. A little background on how we even got to come up with this idea. When holds are placed in the system, whether it's by staff or by patrons through any of the interfaces, when it comes time to choose where the item is going to be picked up, you're always presented with a list of libraries, or more precisely, library policies, which generally corresponds to physical locations. So for example, Oak Park Public Library has 3 library policies, one for each of their branches. Now there's always been a type of library that isn't really a full library, and those are the bookmobiles. They don't have patrons. Sometimes they have items, sometimes they don't. But as far as the system is concerned, they're full libraries. So the fact remains that if patrons wanted to choose a locker or curbside or something when they're placing a hold, they don't have that option. So the question is, why don't we just make all the library policies we need to accommodate all these different needs? Well, they have a cost associated with them. Library policies are very fundamental to everything that happens in the system, and Cersei Dynix does charge money for that. Now, since having a library policy that's just a locker is much simpler than a full library, and also we had a little bit of a backlog of pseudo libraries to add to the system, we were able to get a little bit of a discount with Cersei Dynix. So what does the actual implementation of that look like? Since in the software they are still libraries, there's lots of checkboxes that we had to go through before we got this really working correctly. And right off the bat, we have the issue of holds for lockers or drive-up windows popping up in workflows as being in transit, and they're going to show up in delivery. So we wanted to name those policies as intuitively as possible. You may have seen these depending on, if you ever work the desk or handle the bins or anything like that. The library's 3-letter agency code _ and then a couple of characters depending on what kind of pseudo library it is. So here we have Indian Prairie and their drive-up window, and then Oak Park has 2 different sets of lockers, one inside and one outside. So we are able to tell Rails delivery INS star goes to INS, OPS star goes to OPS, and so on. And also libraries in SWAN who don't have a pseudo library are going to start seeing these library policies as they're doing their circulation. So they need to know as well. And that's worked pretty well. For the libraries that are actually implementing drive-up windows or lockers, there's quite a bit of change to their workflow, lowercase w workflow as well. Going back to Indian Prairie as the example, if they're logged in as INS Circ and they're checking in items, anything that is on hold at the drive-up window is going to show in workflows as being in transit to another library. So then what they need to do is log into workflows with a different login that's associated with that drive-up window and process the materials there. So it's normally, it doesn't matter, INS Circ or INS Tech, it's all INS. But in this case, it's really important that the 2 different workflow sessions don't get mixed up. There's not a lot we can do to change the look and feel of workflows based on login. What we did come up with is the screenshot you see here, with one toolbar that has kind of a long name and one simple set of wizards. And this is also an example of, as we started testing this, all the little details, all the little things that you have to think of when implementing a library. They have the library calendar wizard. INS_D is a different library policy in the system. It has its own days closed calendar. So when they get their days closed for the year, they have to enter it in 2 places. That's just one example. We also had to edit circ maps and hold maps. We had to modify all the circulation notices. But we got that process down pretty well now, I would say. And as far as I know, it's working pretty well for the libraries that use it. And of course, the real payoff is that patrons can go in to Aspen or the mobile app and choose the locker or the drive-up window. And that's the whole goal of this. So I think we have 2 more libraries that we're implementing soon, and we've got our process. And so this is something that's available now. And I believe Michael is next with MessageBee.
I am. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to talk to you, excited a little bit, talk to you about MessageBee. So what is MessageBee? MessageBee is a service provided by Unique. SWAN currently uses it for its phone notifications. We've been using it for quite a while now. We switched away from the Cersei Dynix SVA service, probably a little more over a year ago or so, but we're investigating this for the use of HTML and SMS notices. As you know, right now, we don't have HTML notices for for your for the patron notices, and we're investigating the message be unique service because it's something that's play on words, really unique. I think it's something that's going to be a really good tool for the SWAN member libraries. It would also put all the patron notices under one roof. Again, we're using it currently for the phone notices. We'd bring in the SMS notices and the HTML notices. So right now we're in an approval process. We're investigating the MessageBee and the MessageBee portal with Unique. They've been really good to work with. And we're demonstrating this to the member libraries. We just had Aaron talked about this at quarterly earlier in the month, and we're going to be talking about it too at COW pretty soon. So just to give you an example what the difference is, on the left here is what our current overdue notice, or excuse me, in this case, it's a library renewal notice, looks like. It's not bad. It's just plain text. This is what every patron basically sees in the email. Pretty clear cut. But on the right-hand side is an example of what MessageBee's email HTML notice would look like. As you can see, it's filled with color, graphics, branding, that we feel that libraries are really, really going to enjoy. So we're hoping we can push forward with this. What other tools and benefits will we have for MessageBee portal? Well, as I said, everything would be under one roof, and including that, you'd have this MessageBee portal, which allows you to do reporting on the types of notices and the overview, including failures. An example here, you have the report filters on the right. You just select your email, voice, or text, whichever one you want to report on, the time period, the notification type, like hold, courtesy, overdue, and then notification subtype too, of whether it's voice, email, text, etc. Along with that is tracking ability. So this is really helpful when you get a call or the patron comes in and says, I'm sorry, but I'm not receiving my notices. Well, you can go into the MessageBee portal and confirm that, yes, MessageBee did in fact send this out, what time it was sent, what the message was. You can search with the calendar gadget there by hold, the different notice type, and the time span. I've been using this. I haven't had to use it a lot of times, but this is coming very handy, again, just even for the phone messages. And currently, SWAN libraries do have the ability to do something similar, but it's not under one roof. We do have these these different tools that our system engineer, Rudy, created. But this just allows it all, again, all under one roof. So somebody doesn't have to remember, like, do I go here or go there? And this is just a timeline of the MessageBee portal. As I mentioned, we just had a SWAN quarterly presentation. We're going to have another one coming up at COW. Rob for Unique is going to be participating in that, answering everyone's questions. And then come December 1st, that is when the SWAN libraries are going to vote on whether we want to go with MessageBee. This is an all-in option, so if the majority votes, it would be for everybody. And after that, we'd have a separate timeline where we'd start rolling this out as quickly and efficiently as we can with Unique, contacting libraries and getting those new templates set up and just transferring everyone over to Unique's MessageBee service. And I'm going to send this back over to Vicki for Blue Cloud Analytics accounts updates.
Okay, time for Blue Cloud Analytics. I did not say BCA. I said it now, but I started with Blue Cloud Analytics. When we first got this tool, we saw just how wonderful the tool was to be able to find all of this information when you're out there at a library. And we made sure that everybody had an account so that you would be able to access it and get all that information that you need for whatever you need it for. And not too long after that, we started seeing that as staff would move on from one position to another library, any of the reports that they had saved or subscriptions that they had created, they were not easily accessible by others at the library. So what we did is we created shared logins for each of the libraries. And what we've done with that is your Blue Cloud Analytics login, your account login is always going to start with SWAN libs, and then you're going to put your agency code in there, your library agency code. So makes it nice and easy for everyone to remember what that login is, and everyone at your library will have access to that. And the passwords for all of those accounts are available to your director or designated library staff. So whoever has access to your workflows passwords, things like that in your library, they're going to be able to see the Blue Cloud Analytics passwords as well. So what we've done so far in this is we have removed, well, I say we, but we actually have to ask Cersei Dynex to do this for us. It's one of the reasons that we did move to those library accounts. We're not able to maintain those accounts for you. We do have to contact Cersei Dynex, and they will then be able to update a password or just remove the account completely. So what we've done so far is we've had Cersei Dynex remove any account login where there has been no login, or there are no saved reports or saved subscriptions. And that took care of quite a few accounts for us at that point. So makes it a lot easier to work with. That being said, there are still a lot of existing accounts out there other than the library accounts. So what we're asking staff to do is just to go through your personal login and see if there's anything there that really needs to be moved to that library login account. And we can help you to do that. Excuse me. And once you do that and go through all of your subscriptions, too, you may have subscriptions that are coming to you that you're no longer using. So it's a really good time to review all of that. So once you go through everything in your account, we can help you to move those to your library login. And all you have to do is open a ticket with us, and that's going to be sending an email to help@swanlibraries.net. And if you have any questions with it either, or if you're wondering how you can do this, again, just contact us and we'll be able to help you out with it. And I will pass it on to Rudy.
Right. So SWAN is in the middle of a support site migration and or upgrade, depending on what the terminology you want to use is. So our current environment for our support site, we're running Drupal 7 in a self-hosted server in Azure. And if you've been following Drupal at all, well, you'll know that Drupal 7 is coming up end of life. It was actually supposed to go end of life this year, but they extended support for an additional year just because of the amount of users that are on Drupal 7. So we want to go ahead and get off of Drupal 7 before it loses support. But in some of our testing in-house, we ran into some issues. The migration tools aren't handling all of our content types and the way that we have certain things structured very well. So it wasn't just a simple install Drupal 9 on top of Drupal 7 and we're good. So we started doing a little bit of investigation, and we started talking with some potential partners for how we can get to where we need. One of the potential partners that we talked with is Pantheon. So they are a Drupal hosting provider. That is probably about 90% of their business. So like Drupal is what they do. They have a very competitively priced and feature-rich hosting platform. And they also have extended support for Drupal 7 outside of mainline Drupal through at least 2026 at this point. So migrating over to Pantheon's hosting kind of takes a little bit of pressure off of us. And it also gives us access to a lot of really nice features that we don't currently have. They have development sandboxes, which that essentially lets us clone up our site, do a lot of testing, see if anything's going to break. Once we find something in the development sandbox that we think is going to work, we can move that into a staging environment that will live side by side with our current site. We can do some testing, make sure that it's actually going to work live out onto the internet. And when we're happy with it, happy that everything's where we want to be, we can promote that staged install to our live site. And also with the staging environment, we have the benefit of single click rollback. So let's say that an update that we made to our site didn't go as planned. It's just a single click and we're back on the site that was working just fine 20 minutes ago. These are things that if we were trying to implement them, do it ourselves, it would just take so much staff time to develop that. And the restoration process is just so much easier. We would be back up and running within a few minutes rather than a couple of hours in the event that something goes wrong. So the second part of that is once we're in Pantheon's environment, we have access to all these nice new tools. We are going to move forward. We are going to move to the latest version of Drupal. We were planning to go straight from 7 to 9, just skipping 8 entirely. But now Drupal 10 is scheduled to be released in December. So just kind of depending on timeline and what the maturity of it looks like as it's launched, we may even skip straight from 7 to 10. And these new versions of Drupal give us a lot of benefits too. Like we can better leverage the SSO project that we are working on, which I guess I'll just go straight into SSO. So as Dawn mentioned earlier, we are focusing on the SSO project. What this will do for everybody at our libraries is it will provide a single login for most of the services that SWAN provides. You'll have the same exact login for Blue Cloud. That would be, I'm not sure if analytics is in the works yet, but we are looking at Blue Cloud circulation and acquisitions at this point. Our support site would be the same login, ticketing system, and the forums. We've done a lot of testing in-house already with this, and we've seen pretty decent success. There's still some kinks that we need to work out, but we're confident that this is going to be a good solution. Also, as the name implies, single sign-on, you can log into the Blue Cloud in the morning, and then when you go to log into the support site, you click login, it will see that you're already logged in and you don't have to log in again. So it is a truly single sign-on solution. So it will save everybody time. You don't have to worry about remembering which account goes to what. It also does give us some security features that we don't have available now, such as multi-factor authentication. I don't know what the plan is initially, but we will probably at some point be requiring like director logins and such to be multi-factor authentication, because they have access to a lot of information, sensitive information, like the workflows, passwords, SIP credentials, so on and so forth. So that'll give us the ability to really kind of beef up our security for staff who have access to sensitive information. The last thing that I'm going to talk about today is Azure Defender. If you're not familiar, Defender is a security suite that was created by Microsoft. It started off small quite a few years ago, where they dipped their toes in doing the Windows Defender antivirus software. And then they just kind of built off of that over the years. It still does endpoint protection, but now they do a lot more with it. It's tightly integrated with the Azure environment that we're using for our hosting for most services these days. It can bring in a lot of log analytics from all of our servers. The logs will point to any potential security issues that may have arisen, can even point to misconfigurations and such. And one of the other things this really ties into our security initiative is because it can analyze our systems and our configurations and make sure that we are in compliance with the security framework that we're working with. We've selected the NIST 800-171, if I'm correct, standard, which kind of dictates what the security policies and configurations should be. And this will just very easily point us in the right direction of systems and services that we need to look at and reevaluate how they're configured. It's also very nice because it does a lot of protection under a single umbrella. Not only will we have the cloud assets hosted in Azure, but we can also protect the few on-premise servers that we have at our Quail Ridge location in Westmont, and it can also protect the staff workstations that we have. And in the event that we do have a security issue, it can analyze everything from end to end to figure out what the point of entry was and how the attackers were able to traverse our network, so we can better protect for things in the future. I think that's about it.
Thanks, Rudy, and thanks, Vicky, Michael, and Dave for reviewing kind of the projects we've been working on over the past several months and continue to work on. So yeah, we're really busy, and we have some cool projects that are going to be coming up soon. And one of them is we're beginning to look at a new ticketing system. So we average about 700 new tickets a month. Some of them are easy to close, some of them require more work. So it's not a great metric, but there is a large volume of tickets that we're working with in any given month. The current ticketing system, OTRS, is getting old. It's an open source project, and actually the open source project kind of folded and then it branched off into two branches, but we're still running a version that's the old version when it was still licensed under Creative Commons. So it's been around for a while. It was originally, actually, it was the ticketing system that we were on with Rails. when SWAN moved to our Quail Ridge location, Rails actually continued to host the ticketing system for a number of years before we finally shifted hosting to us. So we now host it, but it's still basically OTRS, and it is still tied into L2, which has some further complications. So kind of it's not as feature rich as many of the offerings are at this point. It's a very basic interface. It gets the job done, but not having any sort of integration or particularly a CRM or a customer relation manager portion where we could, if we get a ticket that we need to reference, we would be able to theoretically, look at a product that would cross-reference all the libraries that are using this particular vendor, and then we can see if people had a problem in the past, and just sort of have that, not even from a ticketing perspective, but just from a daily usability perspective. If we have somebody coming in saying, "Oh, hey, we're working with, vendor XYZ, and is anybody working with them?" Kind of the general way you look through it is, did anybody open a ticket with this before? Whereas we would love to have, well, let me take a look and open vendor XYZ and say, yeah, these libraries are using this vendor, and referencing any tickets that had been opened, and just have that ability kind of cross-check and cross-reference our tickets against the vendors and the libraries that are tied to them would really be a powerful tool. The other thing that OTRS is lacking right now is the integration with an identity provider. Currently, it syncs up with L2 to create the accounts, which has been problematic if we've tried to create an OTRS test user and everything's great, and then the next time it syncs with L2, it deletes the user. It's complicated because then we have to get Rails involved and say, hey, can you associate this test user, blah, 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 blah. But as Rudy discussed with our single sign-on project, which right now we're testing against Keycloak as our identity provider, what that would essentially allow you to do is everybody will have their single sign-on, which will work for Blue Cloud and the support site, and also the new ticketing system. So everything will kind of be under that single login. So that's something that we really strongly want, are those two, the identity provider single sign-on integration, and the customer relations integration is just going to be a really, it'll be a game changer for us in just how we kind of dig through the mountains of tickets that we've dealt with over the years. And you don't realize how important searchability of tickets are until you're doing it on a regular basis, and you find all the ways that the system is just not providing what you want. So it's time. OTRS has had a good run, but Tara and I are beginning to look at the replacement options. We literally just began looking at it like this week, as I have only officially been ITSS manager for 3 days. So lots going on, and we're going to continue to kind of work on the projects we're working on now. We have some exciting new stuff that's coming on the pipe, and I think it's going to be a really exciting, 2023 is going to be a really exciting year for the ITSS department, and I'm excited to be a part of that. So with that, I would like to open the floor to any participants. If anybody has anything they want to discuss, any questions, any technology related projects, anything like that, if you care to share, please feel free to unmute and do so. That's fine too. Quiet crowd. So if you don't want to chat, you can continue to discuss on the SWAN community forums, which again, at some point, we'll use a single login to sign on. So that'll be great. But yeah, if you have any questions that come up, please feel free to open a new thread on our community forums. And, we will not only do SWAN staff respond to threads, but also other member libraries will respond. So even if you have a question that's just, you know, a barcode scanner related question or a printer related question, post it, because somebody else at another library may have encountered that same thing, and you might be able to get your answer very quickly. So yeah, I think that's a great tool that, you know, has been really growing over the past couple of years, and I think you know, we're starting to really pick up some steam with the forums. So I would like to encourage everybody to post to the forums if you have any technology related questions. Obviously, I'm, you know, showing off the technology portion of the forum, but there are several categories that you can post in, from circulation to cataloging, etc.
We had to recently increase the size of that too,
Yeah,
because everyone was using it. So I
which
was
is great.
excited for that.
Definitely, definitely. Just upcoming meetings. We have our September fireside chat next week, followed by a October fireside, and then we have the SWAN RFID users group in late October, just before Halloween. So that is all we have for you today. If you have any questions, please feel free to open a ticket. This session has been recorded and will be posted to YouTube as well. So if anybody was unable to attend today, that will be posted to our support site as well. And if you have any needs for training new staff or anything like that, our support site has a request training link as well. So thank you all for attending today. I'm going to stop the recording.